Carrie Sheffield, it's been a long time since you've been in our house, a senior fellow with the Independence Women Forums. Welcome back to the broadcast, and thank you so much for joining us.
I'm not hearing him. Should I be hearing him?
I'm hearing you. Oh, as they prepare to repair our guest, Shelley, Carrie Sheffield's audio. So here we are, and the government is literally still shut down. It's impacting air traffic controllers, pilots in the sky, law enforcement, whether it's the FBI, the Capitol Hill Police, federal workers have been furloughed, and even when the government returns, there is no certainty that they will be able to get their back pay or their benefits. There's just so many unknowns. And I don't know if you heard the audio today between Chuck Schumer and President Trump in the Oval Office when he said, "I'll shut this government down." Did you hear that audio? Carrie, I don't know if you heard Chuck Schumer in his arrogance discussing how he was talking to the president. I was just stunned when you listen to this audio. When he threatened the president, if I don't get my way, if these two things don't happen, I'll shut this down. Your thoughts?
Thanks for having me, Armstrong. I did not hear that audio, but I am not shocked at all. I feel like we could have probably typed that dialogue out in our sleep because it certainly does match his actions in a lot of ways. When I see my read on Chuck Schumer, I think he's afraid of a primary challenge by AOC in New York because, unfortunately, the extreme elements of the Democrat Party have pulled the party leadership so far to the left that he's felt like because the first go around, Chuck Schumer did the right thing and helped to vote to keep the government open. And he got all kinds of blowback. And so he's not doing that again. And so it's really unfortunate when partisanship is put ahead of people's lives. I will say, I think we hit a turning point today because you had the largest government sector union representing 800,000 government workers. They came out and they said, we need a clean CR. They didn't specifically name the Democrats, and I went and I looked up their donations. They give overwhelmingly, I think almost exclusively to Democrats. So they didn't name Democrats in their press release, but they did say, all sides here need to come to the table, pass a clean CR, get these ancillary topics off the table, talk about them in a separate dialogue.
What is the significance of our president being in Asia all week, Carrie? I mean, from Japan to China, he's meeting with Xi on Thursday. Obviously, Bassett is there, and they made the announcement that they reached some kind of stalemate and some kind of coexistence where China and the United States they're making progress on trade and these tariffs. The market has responded quite favorably.
It is. The president is showing the leadership as he has throughout his time in office and his first term. And you saw the wonderful deals coming out of Thailand and the way he connected with the people of Malaysia through his dancing. I think it's been an incredibly successful trip. And I think when you compare and contrast the headlines of the people of Asia versus the Democrats back home, this is an even wider gap in perception between how the public, the American public, views Democrats versus President Trump. I went and I reviewed, Real Clear Politics does the polling average of favorability for Democrats, for Republicans, and Trump. And Trump is outperforming by orders of magnitude when you're talking about the net negatives versus favorability. Democrats, I believe, was net negative of 26 points, and for Trump, it's only net negative 6 points. And overall, the favorability is much higher, I think almost double for President Trump compared to congressional Democrats. So if this is, they say there's a phrase, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. And I like to think that Chuck Schumer, he's smarter than this. And unfortunately, I think he's acting in a political interest here and trying to avoid a primary.
Talk about the significance of this primary win, similar to a midterm election, and Argentina, the fact that Trump was willing to underwrite $40 billion loans, give them a loan because their peso was tumbling. He said to the people, vote for him and show me that this is the kind of change in the policies that you want to continue. How insignificant was this, Carrie?
It's significant. I recently was at a dinner with David Malpass, who was the former president of the World Bank, and he was talking about how the fact that the Argentine government is they're on the pathway to dollarize their currency to peg it to the dollar, and that this will make significant strides against inflation. I think that's wise for them. And the fact that Milei has now solidified his strength in the parliament is good wind under his sails, and it gives him momentum for government reforms. And the fact that he beat back the Peronistas at the polls, I think that the people of Latin America, they want something different, and it's exciting.
You know, 100 former officials at the Department of Justice came out today asking the Virginia judge to dismiss all charges against former FBI Director James Comey. And their reasoning is that this was a vindictive indictment. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't know each of these individuals. I do know that I've seen similar things, similar rodeos like this, where you have a bunch of former government bureaucrats writing these letters to try to go after Trump. And then, like in the case of, for example, the Hunter Biden laptop, they said this had the footprints of misinformation from Russia. It turns out it was verified and it was true. And so I'm not as convinced by the so-called establishment elite as perhaps I might have been as a younger woman. And I think what President Trump is showing, is adherence to the rule of law and letting folks know that nobody is above the law. And President Trump has, noted that James Comey, I mean, he testified under oath 3 times that President Trump was not under investigation. And then they continue to prosecute President Trump. And so, it's just, to me, richly ironic that these individuals have signed on to this letter when there's all kinds of overwhelming evidence that the weaponization of the law was happening against Trump. And if anything, Trump is trying to the pendulum swung this way and Trump's trying to swing it back to the middle where justice is truly blind.
Carrie, I was in New York recently, and it's a foregone conclusion among all socioeconomic stratas that Zohran Mamdani is going to win the mayoral race. Many people are saying that so many people in businesses are going to pack up and leave. But what does this tell you about our country and one of the most important financial capitals in the world, a major hub of the United States, that someone like Zohran Mamdani, 33, has really never held down a job, rarely showed up in the assembly when he was elected by the people. He rides the bus to a mayoral debate, and all the young people think it's the best thing since sliced bread. He can relate to them. Nothing but theater, you and I understand. And then after the debate, he rides off in a limousine and have dinner with his mother at the most expensive restaurant in New York. But what does it say about where we are? And then you look at Katie Porter in California running for governor. Is this the rise of the progressives and the downturn of America?
Well, I think overall America is still the greatest country in the world. And as President Reagan would love to say, that it's a shining city on a hill. There's a reason why hundreds of millions of people around the world would love to move to America. This is undisputable. And the reason why is because we have a long track record of protecting the rule of law, of protecting the rights that are given to us by God. And I lived in New York for almost 10 years. I got out in early 2020. I believe it was God timing. I got out January 26, 2020, right before COVID, and moved here to Virginia, where we have a great governor now. I think what's really interesting is that you're seeing in some ways a strong polarization where the fringe elements are really gaining control of states like California and New York and Illinois, but you're having this mass migration and exodus to the South. There have been numerous studies about the number of congressional districts that are just come forward in 2030 when we have the new census. You could have 10 to 20 seats that are going to Republicans. And this is, the Bible tells us, by your fruits you shall know them. If people are taking billions or even trillions of dollars of GDP with them and exiting, thank God for federalism, where we have these natural laboratories of democracy with the states. I think, to me, I don't understand rationally why someone might like Mom Donnie or Gavin Newsom wouldn't see this exodus and want to change. But you know what they say in Alcoholics Anonymous, change doesn't happen until you hit rock bottom, and it's apparently we haven't hit that yet.
As a person of faith that I admire and have so much respect for, President Trump recently commented that he doesn't believe that anything will get him into heaven, and that he's unsure if he is heaven bound. What was he saying?
Well, nobody can know exactly what's in his heart, so I'm
not talking about his heart. I'm only talking about what he said. Those are his words. I'm not asking about his heart, Gary. Those are his words. What is he saying?
Well, what I would be struck by is this idea of works versus grace. So in the Christian theology, there's the belief that nothing any human being can ever do would qualify us for heaven, because we are all sinners, every single last one of us.
But he said he doesn't believe anything will get him in heaven, Carrie. Anything. I understand what you're saying. You're dodging the bullet here. You're not trying to. If you want to move on, I'll be more than happy to do that. Let me just move on. One last question, okay? I'll move on. President Trump is asking his Justice Department to reimburse him $230 million for what he considered to be a witch hunt of lawsuits against him. $230 million. Your thoughts?
Well, I do know President Trump has some pretty fantastic lawyers. The fact that he's got a very strong track record to date in this administration and the previous for him, I haven't looked at the legal arguments of this. I'd have to look at that. But I think in particular, or when you look at overall damages, I mean, this is a man who gave up a very plush, gilded life.
Gave it up? Gave it, Carrie? He enhanced it. Which is it?
Well, I mean, to go to public service, he could have spent the rest of his life just playing golf and having fun without having someone try to murder him. The fact that he had two assassination attempts, one that nearly killed him, to have, people like Al Sharpton, who spent decades kissing his ring, saying how great he is, giving him civil rights awards, and then only overnight to turn on him because he became a Republican.
But are you saying that this justifies the government reimbursing him $230 million? I just want to see where we're going with this.
Well, like I said, I need to look at the legal.
Okay, I'm gonna let you look at.
But yes. I will say we do have a history in our country of granting damages, and President Trump has suffered a lot of damage, but he is a victor ultimately.
$230 million worth of damage? Okay, Carrie, it's always a pleasure seeing you. It would not be me if I didn't ask you these penetrating questions about our president, and you never disappoint me in your answers, by the way.
I always enjoy them. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on.